Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Video Mail for the week of February 6th, 2012. Welcome back to the site to the old members and welcome to the site to the new members. The Ask Video Mail is your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this one every week. But I need your question if I'm going to answer it. So please send me your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I promise I go through all the questions and I answer the ones I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a stupid question. It's the best way to get the most value for your subscription. So speaking of subscriptions, there are a few people who have signed up recently. If you're one of them, make sure that you used a valid email address. All of the notifications, all of the cancellation notices, if you have a password reset, and if you purchase anything in the store, the download link is sent to your email address. The best way to test if you have the right email address is just to go to the account settings. It's on the menu over there. And over there, menu over there, and just see if the correct email is in your account settings. Another way, you can just send me an email or send a message through the contact form, and it shows me your email address. A couple of people input the wrong email, and some people actually just put in any old email. There's no email verification system, so it doesn't check. So you could get into a little bit of a pickle if you order something from the store and you don't get your download link. So just so you know, use your correct email address. And also in terms of subscriptions, remember that there are really nice referral bonuses. If you refer a member that signs up for 30 days or 60 days, you get 30 days free, just boom like that. It happens instantly and automatically, and it's fantastic. And if they sign up for a year, you get 60 days free. I've actually had some people who have strung together 6-7 months of free time here on KennyRoy.com just because they had their friends sign up. So please look into that if you haven't already. And another very big announcement. It is February 6th, 2012, and in 2 weeks, I'm planning on it 2 weeks from now, give or take a few days, I'm going to be doing a 24-hour animathon. And what it is I'm going to be webcasting my screen and animating the first shot or one of the first shots from my short film entitled The Little Painter. And I'm starting my Kickstarter page at the same time. I would really appreciate it if you told as many people as you can about this animathon, and you showed up and just supported me, just for, even if you hang out just for 20 minutes, because you're going to be able to look at exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to be kind of talking out loud. It's going to be exhausting. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait to do it. It's going to be such a fun time. And it's going to be to promote the Kickstarter funding of my short film, The Little Painter. I'll tell you a little bit more about The Little Painter in the weeks to come, and I will do a news post that is specifically just about The Little Painter, and so look out for that. But let's get to the question for this week's video mail. It's a really good one, and so let's take a look. What a great question. So most rigs come with a couple different spaces, a couple different object spaces that the IK arms can travel within. Now what does that mean? A world space object is an object that moves, and it moves around in the world, meaning it doesn't have a parent, and if it does have a parent, all of the parent's transforms are zeroed at the origin. Meaning if you move a object 1 unit on the grid, then the object's transforms in the channel box says 1 unit. Okay, so we say something is in world space if it is on the world coordinate system. Now, true world space is obviously with no parent, with no transforms above it, and it literally is transforming itself in the world. But for our purposes, world space, for an animator's purposes, world space can be considered anything that is, again, moving in the world coordinate system. Now, for us as animators, we say that because normally a character's a character's IK controls, and like their hands, their feet, and their waist are in what we can refer to as world space, because again they all move, even though they're like in nested transforms and constraints and all that stuff. Again, they normally do move in world space. Now, object space just means that the thing you're manipulating is a child of an object that has transforms on it, either scale, translate, or rotate. And what that means is if you have a group, and well, let me show you here. I'm just going to start a new scene here. So let's say we have a sphere, okay, and then we have a cube, all right? And now I'm going to parent the cube to the sphere. So now this cube is parented underneath this sphere, okay? Meaning if I rotate the sphere, the cube goes with it, but I can move this cube around, but the cube is moving around in what we call the sphere's object space, okay? So if, let's say I do this, let me scale this down a little bit. All right, so if I freeze the transforms on this, all right, it's kind of floating in space right here, all right? So let me create a locator, all right, and just kind of position this where this cube is, all right? So it's basically right here, all right? So anything I do to this sphere, the parent object happens to the space, basically. It's almost like it's traveling around in jello that is locked to this sphere. Anything I do to this sphere happens to this cube. All right. So the most clear illustration I have of this is actually scale. All right. So if I move this right here and then I scale this up, all right, like that, and I try to zero this cube. If I zero the cube, look, it used to be where this locator was, but now it's all the way over here because I'm scaling the literal space that this cube travels in. Okay, so this is what we call, this cube is in this sphere's object space. Okay, this is an object space transform. All right, it's not a world space transform because it's zeroed. If it was a world space transform, then it should, then 0, 0, 0 would mean it's at the origin, okay? And that makes no sense, all right? So we can get it back to object space if I snap it to the origin and then freeze the transforms on the sphere and the cube, all right? And if I snap it like this, then it's actually moving in world space. I'll show you. So right now, this locator is at 0, 0, 0, and if I snap it to the grid point right here, this grid point is 20, all right? So this grid point right here is 20 units, and if I snap this one, you see in the channel box it's 20 units as well. Okay, so now just because this sphere has been zeroed, its transforms have been reset, this sphere is now once again moving within world space. These are world space transforms, but you got to be careful because if this is not like a group or if this is not a rig object that we're not touching and you do touch it, then all of a sudden now we say that this object is moving within this sphere's object space again. Okay, so that's just a quick rundown of what I mean by object space and world space. Okay, so when do you use these object space transforms that you get on a rig? There's two situations in which you want to use them. The first is if you are doing some sort of acting or performing with your IK arms and you want them to touch the body and ride with the body. Okay, it's very, very, very simple. Let me show you. Right now, this is Pierre. This is the little painter. You guys have seen this rig, I think, in a few video mails and in the Snappy Dialogue walkthrough. And he has 5 different spaces that his limbs can object space transform within: root, cog, low spine, high spine, and head. And those are the defaults that come with AB Auto Rig, which is a really good rigging script. If you have some character models, you'll definitely be able to figure out AB when it comes time to rig it. Anyway, so by default, the root control controls the IK arms. And again, they move within the root's object space. And the root moves within world space. So this root channel right here is basically a constraint. So just think of it as a constraint. So let's say I want cog control. I would turn it to 1. Now cog control is 1. And since the root moves the cog, then it's going to move with the root. And now if I move the cog or the waist, it depends on what kind of rig you're using. If I move the cog as well, this IK arm actually moves with the cog's object space. All right, it's just like the sphere and the cube I showed you just now. Now, why is that advantageous? Well, let's say there's a scene where Pierre, that's his name, Pierre has his hands on his hips. And he says, well, now, I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm going to go over here. Do, and walks off like that, okay? You see how we have built into our rig a really quick and easy way to constrain his hand to different parts of his body. Same thing, it works with everything else. High spine, that's good if his hand is on his chest. Okay, and let's say he's laughing. Ha 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 ha! Oh, that's so funny. Something like that. All right. Then again, with the head control would be if he puts his hand on his cheek, like this. Okay, and says, I can't believe you just said that to me. Oh, you're so mean. Something like that. Okay, so basically, it's very simple. That use of these object space constraints is pretty straightforward. If you need the hand to move with a certain part of the body, most rigs have a few constraint points, if you want to think of them like that, built into the rig. And to plan for it, the other part of the question, to plan for it, is as simple as when you're drawing your poses and thumbnailing your scene, you decide, okay, his hands are on his hips. Let me make sure I have a hip constraint or a hip object space transform. And if it doesn't have it, then you just kind of have to go through the old thing. I've shown you in a few lectures, there's plenty of tutorials online, how to create a locator and constrain it to the hips if that's where you want it to be. If you're thumbnailing your scene and the character goes, oh no, then obviously this is a no-brainer. You're just going to dial up the constraint to 1 and stick it on there. Now they're animatable constraints, all right? And remember, a constraint can be animated on or off, and you need to be sure that when you're animating the blend between those different object spaces, you're going to have to deal with a little bit of counter animation. For this, especially if you're doing a really complex scene where he puts his hands on his hips and then his chest and then his face, you probably want to do it across one frame. Just key it across one frame. Reason is because it's easier to correct one frame like in motion and just like work those 2 frames than like do it like 10 frames and do like a really long blend between those object spaces. The other instance in which you'd want to use something like this is if you have a pretty complex action that you don't want to have to counter animate your IK arms against. The one I thought of for these purposes was if you have a character, for instance, riding a horse, and their hands are supposed to be holding the reins, all right? But instead of the cog controlling the hand and constraining the cog to the horse, you could do the waist, all right? And then you could put both your hands and your feet in different object spaces. You put your feet in the waist or the cog's object space, and you put your hands in the upper spine object space. Why? Because if he's bouncing like this, then it's so much easier to just key that overlap on the body and have your hands go like this, and then just add some little bit of, just a little bit of overshoot on those, and just keep them lagging behind a little bit extra overlap actually rather, on those hands. And there you go. So without it, you'd have, your hands, it's actually like impossible to do. You'd have your hands, completely still, or worse, moving with the cog. So like moving with the horse, right? But with those hands in the chess object space, you get this for free, and then you can just add a little on top. So those are the two instances. Planning for it is very simple and straightforward. It's not something that, or hopefully it's not something that I'm telling you right now, and you're thinking like, wow, this is a huge new tool. This new tool is going to revolutionize my workflow, and now I have to redo my whole planning phase. No, hopefully these seem to you like easy, accessible tools in the rig that make your animation easier. So that was a great question. I really enjoyed answering that. Thanks for sending it in. Please send in a question if you haven't already. There are many members on this site, but actually I probably only get questions sent in from maybe 25% of members. If I was a member on this site, I would be sending in questions every single week, because if my question is picked, it's almost like you get a 15 to 20 minute demo just for you. So please send one in if you haven't already. And if you think it's a dumb question, I promise you it's not. It may be something that other people are struggling with. And finally, you can send me Maya files. I've been receiving some Maya files as well, and I really like receiving Maya files. It's so fun to break open animation, to see what other people are doing and how they do it. So if you want to, you can send me your Maya file. I think it's a lot of fun. So that's this week. Great question. Please send in more. Send them to webmaster@kennyroy.com, and we'll just have a great time together. Look out for more updates on the little painter on the home page, and tell your friends if you can. I really appreciate it. Good luck with your animation, and as always, rock on.